You know, I think it's really interesting. One of my colleagues from Florida just brought up a terrible mass shooting that happened at Florida State University, which is horrible. And this is part of the reason I ran for Congress, is to end gun violence.
My colleague on the other side talked about the nature of things being deadly, and I'd like to talk about that. On April 17th, less than 1 month ago at 11:56 in the morning, a shooter carrying a gun walked onto the campus at Florida State University and began to shoot students and adults. A gun crime that we would all agree was horrific. Now, I'm new in this place. I only got elected here a month ago. And what I will tell you of my observation of my first 4 weeks being in here is I hear a lot of canned speeches that don't actually address the bills and the issues that the American people have sent us here to work on. And I think it's why we may be held to some degree in such low regard. But on this shooting at 11:56 on April 17th, 7 people were shot. 5, fortunately, were not killed. We only know one of them. She was a graduate student. The other names have not been released. But in that shooting, 2 were killed. Roberto Morales was 57 years old, a dining coordinator at Florida State. Tiru Chaba was a vice president at the food service company at Florida State. Now, why do I tell this story? Law enforcement at Florida State did everything right. They rushed to the scene. They subdued the shooter. And you know how long it took them to do that? It took them 4 minutes, the amount of time that I will speak here today. In those 4 minutes, with law enforcement doing everything, 7 people were shot, 2 were killed. Now, H.R. 2243 would say that if any one of them was a retired or an off-duty law enforcement officer, they could have protected themselves. Because the fact of the matter is, when these horrific things happen, it will take law enforcement time to get there. And the only way for you to defend yourself is for you to do it.
But he brought up this shooting. I thought it was interesting because he left out one of the most important parts. He brought up that he never wants to see one of these shootings happen again, but he left out how the shooter got his gun. And the shooter got his gun from his stepmother, and it was a retired service weapon that was not kept in a safe way. He stole the gun, retired service weapon, from his mother, and then he went to Florida State University and murdered 2 people and wounded 6 others. And I bet you that that same gentleman who talked about that shooting is going to vote yes later on H.R. 2255, which I deeply oppose. Just a month later, after this former service weapon was used to carry out a mass shooting and kill people at Florida State University, Republicans here in Congress are pushing the Federal Law Enforcement Service Weapon Purchase Act, which would flood the gun market with even more former service weapons without any additional precautions. 0 safe storage, 0 background checks. In every state, a police officer would be able to purchase an older gun from their department at a discounted price. House Republicans would not even consider my amendment to encourage caution by letting people hold law enforcement agencies accountable with what's done with the weapon. The United States already has the highest number of mass shootings in the world, and gun violence is the leading cause of death for children in this country. So I'm glad that one of my Republican colleagues from Florida wants to make sure that these shootings don't happen again. Let's start by ensuring that we block this bill, H.R. 2255, so that way the police officers don't even have to respond to a mass shooting in the first place. I'm done with talking about how we're going to handle these things after they happen. Let's talk about how we're going to prevent these shootings from happening in the first place. Thank you, and I yield back.